The moment I awakened self-awareness and was pondering who my first kill should be, I was yanked from my dragon throne. Your Majesty, don't you wish for a single partner for life? You are not permitted to have a harem of 3,000 beauties. You must be devoted solely to me. The speaker was my noble consort. After reading a few Western books, she had been pestering me for 3 days, demanding I implement monogamy and dismiss my harem for her. Get out. My gaze sharpened as I looked towards the long sword behind my dragon throne. Talk of monogamy in the emperor's harem? Utter madness. I have an empress. The noble consort is merely a concubine. Umph. The noble consort scowled at me. So what if you're the supreme sovereign? You're still impure. What's the difference between you and a dirty cucumber? Men who don't respect themselves are like rotten cabbage. If you don't dismiss your harem, I'll never speak to you again. By the time the long sword was returned to its scabbard, the noble consort was already lying on the ground. Since you don't like talking, then never talk again. Drag her out. The eunuchs carried the corpse away. After the inner chamber was cleaned, I still frowned deeply. This world was a novel of madness, and I was the emperor in its dynasty of madness. How crazy, you ask? The noble consort calling me impure and demanding I dismiss my harem was just the tip of the iceberg. The princess was disciplined by her mother-in-law all day, forced to copy admonitions for women and instructions for women. A few days ago, simply because she served tea that was too hot, her consort became displeased and demoted her to a concubine. The Grand General of Sai Bei went on campaign to quell the rebellion, but during the fighting, he picked up an orphan girl. From then on, he stopped fighting, indulging in nightly revelry in the military camp. The heavily casualties-suffering soldiers wanted to chop him into mincemeat. And then there was the Grand Tutor, who held his deceased wife's corpse all day, refusing to let it be buried even after it began to decompose. I rubbed my temples. Both the harem and the imperial court were equally insane. There were too many to kill. I thought of the empress, planning to have her take charge of managing the harem while I cleaned up the imperial court. The moment I arrived at the empress's palace, I saw her chatting and laughing with a guard, exchanging flirtatious glances. What is the empress doing? My face darkened. Secretly meeting an outside man. What crime does this warrant? Not only did the empress not admit her mistake or beg for mercy, but she stared directly at me. Your Majesty is far too narrow-minded. Guard Lin and I share a bond that transcends mere worldly affections between men and women. The guard knelt, wanting to explain, but the empress pulled him up by the arm. We haven't done anything wrong. Why should we explain? If your Majesty insists on thinking that way, I have no words to defend myself, even with 100 mouths. I frowned deeply. It was the first time I'd heard such an argument. It was truly novel, yet utterly ridiculous. I'll give you one chance. Immediately kneel, admit your mistake, and request your own deposition as empress and banishment to the cold palace. The empress's tone was displeased. Your Majesty, please stop making a fuss. The more you stir things up, the more I will simply dislike you. Gardlin and I are just like blood brothers. It's absolutely impossible for anything to happen between us. She flashed a sweet, cloying smile at the guard, who returned her gaze with doting indulgence. And please, your Majesty, do not be petty or harbor groundless suspicions. Fine, fine, fine. I drew my sword and, right before the Empress, ran it through the guard's body. Blood spurted onto the Empress's face, and she, terrified, collapsed to her knees. At this moment, a look of fear finally appeared on her face. Terrified, she clutched my dragon robe. I was wrong, Your Majesty. I was confused for a moment. With the sword still dripping blood, I lifted the Empress's chin. Didn't you just say, Empress, that you and Gardlan were like blood brothers? Blood brothers are supposed to die on the same day, in the same year. Gardlin is dead. Doesn't the Empress want to go and die with him? I was just misled by a wicked person, Your Majesty. I will never dare again. My gaze was mocking. Wasn't the Empress quite normal now? It seemed she had previously been emboldened by my favor, acting without fear. Her body trembled incessantly. It was Guard Lin who seduced me, Your Majesty. I admit my mistake. I beg Your Majesty for forgiveness. Too late. A cold glint flashed, and a second corpse appeared beside the guard. I summoned all dozens of concubines from the harem to the Empress's palace. The blood-soaked floor made everyone kneeling there tremble in terror. The Empress and the noble consort were disrespectful to me, and I granted them death. Is there anyone among you who wishes to emulate them? A concubine whose name I couldn't even remember stepped forward. Why is it that Your Majesty can have 3,000 concubines, while we women must only keep to one man? This is unfair. Women should also have the right to take 3 husbands. Ha! A very novel idea. Kill her. My blood droplet assassin beside me received my order and ended her with a single sword stroke. Who else is not convinced? I brushed my dragon robe. Your Majesty is brilliant. Everyone knelt in submission. This scene reminded me of the night before my ascension. My imperial father had passed the throne to my eldest brother, but I led the army to storm the palace, altered the imperial edict, and only then became emperor. The court ministers were unconvinced, saying my claim to the throne was illegitimate and unjustified. I had all those who were unconvinced killed. From then on, no one ever spoke of it again. I realized this method wasn't just applicable to the imperial court. It could be used anywhere. In this mad world, whoever dares to act wildly before me shall be killed. After restoring order to the harem, my thoughts turned to the princess, whom I cherished as the pearl in my palm. She was my most beloved daughter. To keep her by my side, I had a princess's residence built for her in the capital, and in accordance with her wishes, I made the Tanhua scholar her prince consort. But a few days ago, news arrived from the princess's residence. The princess had been demoted to a concubine by her prince consort. My own daughter, the emperor's daughter, demoted to a concubine? Concubine! This is insane. When I arrived at the princess's residence, the princess was kneeling on the ground, serving tea to her mother-in-law. The consort's mother splashed the tea onto the princess's face. Shao King you, have you finished copying the 100 times of admonitions for women I punished you with last time? Though you are a princess, you must ultimately defer to your husband. Once Sitang becomes pregnant and gives birth, you will go and request an imperial decree to name the child as the heir apparent, and then you may still have a place in this household. The princess tried to resist, but the consort ferociously pinned her to the ground. You've already married into this family. Do you still think you're the high and mighty princess you once were? You are now merely a concubine in my residence. If you don't serve properly, beware, I'll sell you off. I pondered what he had just said. My residence? Whose residence? Wasn't this the princess's residence, attendants, and servants that I had bestowed upon the princess? And he wants to sell off a princess? Next, will he try to sell off me, the emperor? Disrespecting the princess, what audacity! I walked over, flicked my long sleeve, and sat in the main seat. A maidservant helped the princess up and seated her to one side. Everyone in the room knelt on the floor. I glanced at the consort, who was in the center. I heard you demoted my princess to a concubine. The consort came from a humble background. His mother supported his studies by washing clothes and mending. Later, he passed the imperial examination, ranking 3rd. Originally, he would only have been granted a 7th-rank official position and assigned as a local prefect. Who knew he would gain the princess's favor? For my most beloved daughter, I made an exception, allowing him to enter the Hamlin Academy as a compiler. I also conferred upon his mother the title of a 2nd-rank lady and bestowed upon them fertile land and jewels. I had originally thought that doing this would make the consort's family forever grateful for the princess's kindness and constantly aware of who brought them their family's honor. Unexpectedly, the consort treated my daughter as a concubine. The princess is prone to jealousy, unfilial towards her mother-in-law, and disrespectful to her husband. She is truly unworthy of being my main wife, the consort said, his face a picture of righteous indignation. The emperor's daughter is unworthy of being his main wife? Then I might as well stop being emperor and become a concubine in your household. who is the consort's current main wife. My gaze fell upon the woman kneeling beside the consort. This commoner girl, Satang, greets your majesty. As the woman met my piercing gaze, she suddenly violently coughed up a mouthful of fresh blood. Several maidservants rushed forward. Cousin Miss is having another relapse. We need the princess's heart's blood as a medicinal primer. The consort stood up and skillfully grabbed the princess, ready to prick her for blood. Seeing the princess's reluctance, his tone became extremely impatient. Shao King you, it's just a few drops of heart's blood. Satang can barely hold on. How can you be so selfish? You will take out your heart's blood for Satang right now, or else. Before he could finish a sentence, he was kicked 3 meters away by the Imperial Guard beside me. Your Majesty, it's all my fault. The consort only had the princess's blood taken for my illness. The frail woman knelt before me, looking at me piteously. It's just a few drops of blood. If the princess isn't willing, I won't force her. Cough, cough. She coughed up a few more drops of blood. This pathetic acting. These tricks were all leftovers from my imperial harem. I only blame myself for protecting the princess too well, making her unable to deal with even these ants. I sat in the main hall, frowning. A guard slashed her clothes with a knife, and indeed, several blood packs fell out from within. Everyone in the room was shocked. The consort's eyes widened. Satang, how could you? I had originally intended to simply kill these 2 fools who disrespected royal dignity. Now that I think about it, that would be letting them off too easily. Guards, sever her hand and foot tendons. Imprison her and the consort together. Every day, take a bowl of the consort's heart's blood and force it down her throat. Keep them alive with ginseng soup. Don't let them die easily. If she likes to drink it, then let her drink her fill. I then pointed at the consort's mother and her maid, disrespecting royalty. Kill them all. As for the guard at the princess's residence who failed to protect their master, execute them all. I brought the princess back to the palace to recuperate. At first, she cried daily from nightmares. Later, I found her 10 male concubines, and she never cried again. After cleaning up the princess's residence, I felt much cleaner around me. Thinking of the pile of messy affairs in the imperial court, my head began to ache again. I summoned the crown prince to the palace to discuss how to manage the eastern floods and ensure the people lived in peace and prosperity. In passing, I casually mentioned, the princess has been in good spirits recently. Have the crown princess come to the palace to keep her company. Father Emperor, your son has already sold the crown princess to a brothel. My hand, which was turning a memorial, suddenly paused. I suspected I had misheard. Say that again. Crown Princess Chui was my most satisfactory daughter-in-law, and also the family member of a subject whom I pitied the most. The ancestors of the Chui clan were founding elders. The Chui woman's father and 5 brothers all died in battle for the country. She was the only remaining bloodline of the Chui family. Unable to compensate the Chui clan, I had resolved to place the Chui woman on the empress's throne. The crown prince was my 3rd son, not originally the most outstanding among the princes. It was only because the Chui woman married him that I chose him to be the crown prince. Now, he tells me the crown prince sold the crown princess and sold her to a brothel. Because of jealousy, the crown princess pushed Qing Qing down the stairs, causing Qing Qing to still be unable to leave her bed. The crown prince showed not the slightest hint of remorse. He bowed slightly. Father Emperor, rest assured, your son merely wished to teach the crown princess a lesson, which is why I sent her to the brothel. Your son only instructed the madam to look after her and teach her manners. I will not let her actually entertain guests. Make me rest assured? A sharp ringing burst forth in my mind. Does this fool even understand what the identity of a Chui family woman represents? Even if the former subordinates of the Chui father and son do not rise up to demand justice from me, the former imperial officials alone, with a single spit each, would be enough to drown me hundreds of times over. I had no time for questioning or punishment. I immediately sent men to bring out the crown princess. Fortunately, the courtesans in the brothel recognized the Chui family woman's unusual status and, not daring to offend her, attended to her with utmost care. Even so, when the Chui family woman was brought out, she was still dazed and couldn't utter a complete sentence. I didn't push her, I didn't. She cowered in a corner. You still dare to deny it? Ching Ching still can't stand up, and you're still unrepentant? If you haven't learned your lesson yet, then. Art. Before the Crown Prince could finish speaking, I kicked him over. I ordered the Ching Ching the Crown Prince had spoken of to be brought in. She was carried into the hall. Her legs beneath her skirt seemed unable to move, and she had a pitiful, wronged expression. Forgive me, Your Majesty. This humble woman's legs are inconvenient. I cannot perform the courtesy. I gazed down at her disdainfully, walked towards her gripping my long sword, and raised it, bringing it down sharply. The woman, with a swift, agile spring, scrambled a few steps away. I discovered I possessed the talent of a divine physician. Some ailments, it seemed, were cured before treatment even began. A crime of deceiving the emperor. Drag her out and execute her. I flicked my sleeve, and the woman was immediately dragged away, still crying out the Crown Prince's name, begging him to save her. The Crown Prince knelt on the ground, trembling uncontrollably, with a hint of reluctance in his eyes, but more so, terror for his own fate. How could he still care about her? After only a moment, a eunuch came in to report that it had been carried out. I could clearly feel the terror in the Chui family woman's eyes slowly vanishing after she heard the news of the other woman's execution. As for you, my gaze swept over the Crown Prince, who was kneeling below, shaking like a sieve. How many sons do I have? Yes, do not subisaume. Reporting to Your Majesty, besides the Crown Prince, you have 18 other imperial sons, 12 of whom have come of age. Imprison the Crown Prince in the imperial clan court. He shall not leave unless dead. I decreed that the Chui family woman and the deposed Crown Prince be divorced, conferred upon her the title of Princess of the Commandery, and allowed her to inherit her father and brother's noble titles. The best compensation in this world is power and money, not men. I had only delayed state affairs for 2 days by dealing with these messy matters, yet the memorials submitted by the officials already piled up, leaving no more space. Among them, 108 memorials were impeaching the Grand General of the Cavalry. During his campaigns, the Grand General of the Cavalry secretly took a concubine. The Grand General of the Cavalry, to amuse a beauty, lit beacon fires, making a mockery of his troops. During battle between two sides, his concubine suffered chest pains, and the Grand General of the Cavalry abandoned our 30,000 troops to go rub her chest. The more I read, the darker my face grew. From these reports, I pieced together the general story. The general of the valiant cavalry donned his armor and went to campaign in the Northwest. He picked up an orphan girl from the battlefield, and from then on, gave no thought to quelling the war, instead lingering beneath a beauty skirt, enjoying nightly revelry in his military tent. Well, it seems the general led his troops not to fight, but to raid a village of widows at night. How unhinged! I feel like everyone is provoking me. This is intolerable. I want to crack open the general of the valiant cavalry skull and see what's actually inside. Thinking of the soldiers on the frontier, I urgently summoned troops. When I arrived outside the military camp, my general of the valiant cavalry was with his concubine, enjoying song and dance and seeking pleasure. He held that delicate woman in his arms, openly flaunting their affection before the soldiers. Jiao Jiao, today was originally a good opportunity to crush the enemy, but you said you didn't want to smell blood today, so I specifically had everyone in ambush withdraw. As long as you don't nod, no one is allowed to draw their blade. The soldiers who have been lurking among the enemy for years, enduring humiliation, would probably chop him into mincemeat. You said killing is too terrifying, so I also released all of the rebel spies we captured. I will personally chop him into mincemeat to avenge the soldiers who died on the battlefield. When this war is over, I will use my military merits to ask His Majesty for your hand, so you can marry me in a grand and honorable fashion. Very well, I will give you a grand and honorable death. When I entered with my sword drawn, the general of the valiant cavalry was stunned for a moment, then quickly knelt down. Your Majesty. I had originally intended to kill this wretched pair with one sword stroke, but after clearly seeing the ethereal and untainted appearance of the kneeling woman, I withdrew my sword. In this place perpetually plagued by war and famine, it was astonishing to find a woman with skin like cream, a beautiful face, and a hint of exotic charm. And an orphan girl at that. No matter how I looked at it, I felt she was an enemy spy. Who is this woman by your side, my dear general? The woman met my gaze, then quickly lowered her head. Jiao Jiao is a woman your subject rescued from the battlefield. Her parents and brothers were all killed by the enemy state. Her background is pitiful, the general of the valiant cavalry said, gripping the woman's hand. Your Majesty, your subject has a request. When I return in triumph, I wish to beg your Majesty to bestow a marriage upon your subject and Jiao Jiao. I curled my lips into a smile. Why wait for triumph? My dear general, you have served with utmost devotion to guard the frontier. I can bestow a marriage upon you both right now. Today is an auspicious day. How about I arrange a wedding ceremony for you, my dear general, right here in the camp? That way, young lady Jiao Jiao will also have a proper status by your side. The general of the valiant cavalry was momentarily stunned, then immediately pulled the hand beside him and, grinning foolishly, kowtowed in thanks. As night fell, after the wedding feast, all the soldiers who drank the wedding wine were drugged unconscious. As a streak of fire whistled through the air, the enemy broke through the pass and entered, the thundering of hooves making the ground tremble. With just one horn blast, the gates closed from the inside, and the fallen soldiers all rose up, raising their blades. It was a perfect trap. The situation quickly reversed. Thanks to General of the Flying Cavalry. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to turn their own scheme against them and win this war so quickly. I threw the military defense map and the correspondence I'd seized from that woman onto the ground in front of him. He picked up the letters, his face full of disbelief. Jiao Jiao colluded with the enemy and betrayed the country. I corrected him. She was an enemy spy to begin with. If someone who perfectly matches your aesthetic and is utterly flawless suddenly appears in the world, there's only one possibility. It's a pig butchering scam. Kill her. I pointed at the woman. How should we deal with this traitor? The soldiers spoke up angrily, their resentment towards General of the Flying Cavalry already running deep. Why should they shed blood on the battlefield while the general frolicked with women in the camp? Don't kill him yet. Your humble subject admits his mistake. I thank your Majesty for your grace, for sparing my life. From now on, I will serve your Majesty with utmost devotion, even if it means smearing my guts and brains on the ground and dying 10,000 deaths. He knelt at my feet, kowtowing repeatedly. You're thanking me too soon. I sneered. The soldier's training happens to lack a live target. He'll do. Only by letting the soldiers deal with him themselves could they barely vent some of their suppressed anger. I watched his expression crack until he was utterly consumed by despair. Good. I want all generals on the battlefield to know what happens when they violate military discipline and bring back strange people. As I led my troops back to the capital, I heard children singing nursery rhymes along the way. Odd changes, even doesn't. The sign depends on the quadrant. This new year, no gifts are accepted. Only Lao Bai Jean. You love me. I love you, Migzu Bing Chung, sweetie sweet. When I was a child, I once heard Consort Shu in my imperial father's harem sing such a nursery rhyme. Consort Shu could not only sing nursery rhymes, but also compose poetry, make weapons, produce salt. At first, imperial father found her novel and doted on her daily. Later, imperial father grew tired of her and gradually became indifferent. She ran to imperial father and cried, saying she only had a 7-day countdown left. I only have 7 days left. After 7 days, I will leave you. I will make sure you can never find me again. I will return to my own era. I'm leaving. I will completely disappear from your world. She would say such words to imperial father several times a day, morning and evening. Finally, Imperial father couldn't stand it. Before the 7 days were even up, he granted her death. Consort Shu's nursery rhymes had somehow spread outside the palace, but I couldn't be bothered to deal with it. I still had to consult with several ministers on how to manage the locust plague in the northwest. When we were only 3 li from the palace gate, a woman suddenly darted out from somewhere, fell in front of my imperial horse, and stared fixedly at me. "Hey, my name is Su Wei, and I come from a distant place. You people here are too backward." She got up and patted the dust off her bottom. "So, you're the emperor of this era? You're quite handsome. You could be my capture target." As the imperial guards cleared the path, with the common people only daring to kneel on either side of the road, a woman dressed in bizarre clothing appeared. How irritating. I don't want to ponder where she materialized from. I merely wish to step right over her. Have you not seen in the high halls, bright mirrors grieve at white hair? Dawn like black silk, dusk becomes snow. Heaven gave me talent. It must be used. Though gold is scattered, it will return again. I had originally intended to simply have her killed, but upon hearing the verses from her lips, my gaze faltered. Such poetry! Imperial Father's Consort Shu had once recited it as well. It was a pity Consort Shu died too soon. Her methods for making salt and soap were not preserved, which I've always found regrettable. Perhaps I could obtain them from this woman, who appears to hail from the same era as Consort Shu. "Well, haven't you ever heard such magnificent poetry?" she asked, looking at me with a smug expression. "All the scholars of your era combined couldn't compose those few lines I just recited." Surprised? Surprised indeed. My lips curved into a slight smile. She tugged at a corner of my armor, winking at me. "I have even more surprises. Does your majesty wish to know?" I seized her hand and pulled her onto the horse. After Su Wei entered the palace, I bestowed upon her the title Feng, Phoenix, and had her reside in Fengming Palace. Both the imperial harem and the imperial court were abuzz with rumors that I was utterly infatuated with Consort Feng, wishing to make her empress, which was why I had granted her such a prestigious title. Only I knew that I was constantly reminding myself not to contend with a madwoman, not to kill her. A woman possessing exotic skills, who understood agriculture and could forge weapons, could feed countless common people and reduce the number of conflicts my nation had to endure. Only an emotional person like Imperial Father would directly condemn her to death. I bestowed upon Consort Feng innumerable gold, silver, jewels, ornaments, and antiques, visiting her daily to make her and her system believe that her conquest mission had succeeded. She and Imperial Father's Consort Shu truly did come from the same era. Both equally forbade eunuchs and servants from kneeling to them in salute. Everyone is equal. Why do you kneel to others? Do you despise yourselves? The palace staff in Fengming Palace all thought she was insane, yet none dared to defy her orders, so they all humored her. "Never mind. You're all accustomed to being servants. You simply can't grasp my way of thinking." Though she verbally swore sisterhood with the palace's concubines and servants, after a palace maid accidentally shattered her antique vase, she cursed her as a lowly wench and used a whip to disfigure the maid's face. I then understood what her "everyone is equal" truly meant. Above her, everyone was equal. Below her, there were myriad distinctions. Each time I visited Consort Feng's palace, I would have her disclose one of her exotic skills. In just 3 months, the armies had constructed siege ladders and catapults. The imperial physicians had experimented and discovered a cure for the plague, and had also mastered the purification of crude salt. By the 4th month, she could no longer produce anything I desired. I could only resort to the same old trick, parading her poems. "Your Majesty, I wish to compose a poem for you." No need. Poems, detached from real-life scenarios, become meaningless waste paper. A woman who has never been to the frontier battlefield, writing "generals die in 100 battles, soldiers return after 10 years," would only lead me to believe she is cursing the border guards. I can also perform street dance, something no one here knows how to do. When she spun around in strange poses, only to trip over her skirt and fall to the ground in utter disgrace, I even thought she was performing witchcraft in broad daylight. After several consecutive visits, I always returned disappointed. Gradually, I understood. Concubine Feng's era was indeed very advanced and powerful, but what Concubine Feng was most interested in was how to win over men. I no longer set foot in the Phoenix Cry Palace. In consideration of the many strange arts she had offered, I preserved her status as Concubine Feng and her dignity. As long as she knew her place, I didn't mind keeping her well-fed and comfortable. What if one day she suddenly became useful again? But Concubine Feng became increasingly insane, saying she wanted to divorce me. If I recall correctly, the exact word she used was divorce. I had never heard this word before. She also claimed that after divorce, everything should be equally divided, and that my imperial throne should be split with her, half for her. Your empire must be split with me, half for me. This is marital joint property. Your imperial robe must also be given to me, half of it. While she was hesitating whether to take the imperial seal or the tiger tally, I killed her with a single sword stroke. I became even more diligent in governing, striving to build a strong nation and establish an era of peace and prosperity for all its people. With me leading the way, the people in the palace became significantly more normal. The officials grew increasingly diligent, wholeheartedly focused on how to bring peace to the populace and govern the nation. The imperial consorts concerned themselves with attending to my daily needs and raising the imperial princes and princesses. Occasionally, one or two people would still suddenly go mad. For instance, my Grand Chancellor. Remembering his meritorious service in assisting with state affairs, I asked him what he desired. He openly requested a reward from me in the Grand Hall, saying, "I implore your majesty to grant us fulfillment. Your servant and the Empress Dowager were childhood sweethearts. I implore your majesty to grant us fulfillment. Your servant and the Empress Dowager were childhood sweethearts." I said, "Does the Grand Chancellor desire a Ferghana horse? I grant it." "Your majesty misheard. Your servant wishes to rekindle his past relationship with the Empress Dowager." I said, "Does the Grand Chancellor wish to keep horses in his front courtyard? I grant that too." The Grand Chancellor fell silent. As a result, on his way home from court, he was killed by an enemy. His head was separated from his body. I have no idea who did it. Next, let's talk about the Grand Tutor. He starved his wife for 3 days, successfully starving her to death, and finally, he found a jade pendant on her person, which seemed to be a token he had given to a life-saving benefactor many years ago. 1 second, the Grand Tutor was still thinking, for this woman to die so easily, she got off too lightly. The next second, the Grand Tutor directly vomited blood. He stopped attending court, stopped teaching the imperial princes and princesses, and spent every day at home going mad, saying he deserved to die. Grand Tutor, Madam has been dead for 3 days. The Grand Tutor clutched his deceased wife's corpse, sobbing, "You're talking nonsense, she's not dead, she just doesn't want to see me." Even when the smell of a corpse began to emanate from the manor, the Grand Tutor still wouldn't allow his deceased wife to be buried. How could I possibly allow such a madman to teach the imperial princes and princesses? Fortunately, he passed away a few days later from excessive grief. That's right, he just dropped dead. It had nothing to do with me. I have always upheld one principle. Whoever goes mad shall be granted death. I have continuously set things right in both the inner court and the outer court. 5 years later, my nation grew increasingly powerful. The people lived in peace and prosperity, and our territory continuously expanded. When the kingdom of Yin came to pay tribute, they presented a beauty, their national princess. The princess was very beautiful, with a pair of delicately charming eyes. But I was already over 40 years old and had little interest in her. I had intended to give her the title of a virtuous concubine and release her from the palace in a few years. Yet, that princess looked at me with a pitying expression, claiming she was a divine maiden sent by heaven to redeem me. Xiao Yin, she called me directly by my personal name. You have been embroiled in sibling strife since childhood. Your father and mother never doted on you. which is why you became a gloomy, manipulative, and pathologically cruel emperor. Anyone who displeases you will be granted death. It's all right from now on. I will use love to redeem you and make you feel the beauty of this world. Although I didn't know why the kingdom of Yin would send over a madwoman. But a marriage alliance with a princess is for the sake of maintaining stability and peace between two nations. I could not kill her for a momentary whim. You know me very well. Of course, I'm a divine maiden. To prove her identity as a divine maiden, she spoke voluminously. You were neglected by your parents since childhood. Your father never taught you horsemanship and archery, and your mother never sang you lullabies. Although you hold the supreme position of the Son of Heaven, you often feel that you receive less love than an ordinary commoner. This imperial throne was never what you wanted. You only ever want a little love. I will give you all my love, so you can find redemption and no longer think of killing people. I recalled the day of the coup, when I ended the lives of the former emperor and my brother with a single blade. Did I kill them to gain their love? It's been a long time since I heard such an amusing joke. You just called me a Yandere? A playful smile touched my lips. What do Yanderes generally do? When you desire something you cannot obtain, you become obsessive, always wanting to imprison the other person, to force them, never allowing them to leave you. Very good. I pondered for a moment. The Princess of Yin has shown great disrespect. Imprison her in the Yetting, Imperial Laundry and Wardrobe Bureau. She must scrub 100 chamber pots daily and is never to leave the palace for all eternity. Imprisonment, compulsion, never allowed to leave. By that logic, I am indeed a Yandere. Outwardly, it will be said that she is ill and recuperating in the palace. No, this isn't right. I am the divine maiden sent to save you. You cannot do this to me. The Princess of Yin was still shouting as she was dragged away. You'll regret this. You will deeply regret this. Even if you chase me all the way to the crematorium, kneeling and kowtowing, I will never forgive you. My world finally quieted down, and I resumed diligently reviewing memorials. Life continued normally and orderly for half a year. I had almost forgotten about the Princess of Yin when a eunuch entered to report. Your Majesty, the Princess of Yin is standing on the city wall, saying she must see you, or she will jump down. She's acting crazy again. I don't know how she managed to sneak out of the Yetting, or how she evaded the guards and climbed such a high city wall. Are my imperial guards just for show? Xiaoyan, you have betrayed me my entire life. I will never forgive you in this lifetime. The divine maiden stood on the city wall, her expression wounded and shattered. You have hurt me too deeply. I will use my death to take revenge on you, to make you forever lose what you love and suffer for a lifetime. This is the greatest punishment I can give you. I found it amusing. The new Southern Opera troupe that arrived 2 days ago wasn't even this funny. When she was alive, I merely found her an eyesore. If she dies, would it really cause me pain? My indifferent expression was too obvious. The divine maiden visibly froze. Why are you making that face? You should be on your knees, weeping bitterly, confessing to me, saying you didn't understand love before, and then threatening me, saying that if I dared to jump, you would slaughter my entire clan. I couldn't be bothered to watch her performance, so I ordered the guards to bring her down. Don't come closer. All of you stay away. Xiaoyan, I will not give you another chance to hurt me. I curse you. May you rule a vast empire in this life, forever enjoying boundless solitude. With that, she stared at me, her eyes red-rimmed. I truly couldn't understand what she wanted. Did she want me to say thank you? This is indeed the best blessing I have ever heard. The divine maiden ultimately did not leap from the city tower. She took one look down from the high tower and was seized by acrophobia. After chickening out, she was apprehended by the imperial guards and brought down. She was sent back to the Yetting and spent her life scrubbing chamber pots. I don't know why the people in this dynasty always go inexplicably mad. And once they start, their madness is always uncontrollable. No matter how we try to rectify the situation, a few more always pop up again. It's as if there's a hand behind the scenes, ceaselessly putting pen to paper. But it doesn't matter. Whoever dares to go mad before me, I will bestow death upon them.